What's going on, NBA fanatics? This is your friendly neighborhood Memphis Grizzly homer, Memphis X, and I talk hoops. Today we are going to have a versus, but this is prospects, NBA draft prospects to be exact. Scoot Henderson versus Ja Morant as draft prospects. But first, every hero needs their theme music.
Piano.
Grizz gang, go hard. Baddest in the game, we be on one. I talk hoops, so secure. All up on the court, but we gon' score. Memphis bringing heat straight from Tennessee. Demorant spiking, let's go on. He that MVP.
Well, unfortunately for Scoot Henderson, the drama about being a number one pick is essentially over for him. Much like during Ja Morant's draft year, there is just an unworldly draft prospect available in the same draft that he's coming out. There is no GM in their right mind that wants to keep their job that's going to take Scoot Henderson over Victor Wembanyama. But that does not mean Scoot Henderson is not a worthy number one pick. If we can remember back into the Zion Williamson draft, Zion Williamson, by the time half the college season had completed, he had established himself as the clear front runner for the number one pick. At the beginning of the season, he was competing with his own college teammate, R.J. Barrett. But during the college season, a guard from a small school called Murray State started to emerge and make himself known as a draft prospect. And that guy was Ja Morant. And on throughout that college season, Ja Morant thrilled draft experts and amateurs with his exploits on the court. And he established himself as the clear number two by the time the draft cycle was complete. Now, my interesting perspective on this is I was front row and center for the Ja Morant hype because the Grizzlies had a top pick that year. I was front row and center for the Derrick Rose hype because he played in Memphis, and that he just made me want to follow the Tigers that year because he was so good and that team was so good. And they had the whole entire city in a vice grip of excitement, dreaming of a national championship behind Derrick Rose's great game. And I was front row and center for Russell Westbrook, who had zero hype because he was on a loaded UCLA team. So we're not going to talk about him. We're going to deal with the three guys that had the hype: Ja Morant, Derrick Rose, and Scoot Henderson. Now, Derrick Rose went number one, Ja Morant went number two, and I expect Scoot Henderson to go number two in this draft. Now, Derrick Rose also was in a draft with a kind of unworldly draft prospect in Michael Beasley, except Michael Beasley had off the court warts that kept him from being number one, despite his production on the court and him being one of the most productive draft prospects in NBA history as a freshman. He still was not able to hold off Derrick Rose because Derrick Rose had fewer warts off the court. So let's get into how Scoot Henderson compares to these guys. Now, there's always the comparison, especially because Scoot is such a good athlete, that he's compared to the athleticism of Ja Morant and Derrick Rose. And to me, in that comparison, he comes up third in the comparison. Now, even though he's more physically developed at 18 than Ja Morant was, and probably more physically developed at 18 than even Derrick Rose, he just does not possess the on-the-court explosion and in-game explosion and effective athleticism that those two guys have. Now, What made Derrick Rose was so unique was he was a well-built athlete and he was explosive. The other thing is Ja Morant is, to me, just crazy explosive. As we all know, we've seen his highlights everywhere on Twitter. His explosion cannot really be compared to Scoot Henderson. Scoot Henderson has a different kind of athleticism. He does not have that tip-top explosion that Ja Morant has, where Ja Morant is in the 0.5 or 0.1% athletes in the NBA. Scoot Henderson has the great off-the-dribble explosion in his first step. He is able to get to any spots he wants, and his athleticism is more in the body control realm, something that both Derrick Rose and Ja Morant have, but I think Scoot Henderson has it at a more effective level. Scoot Henderson also, to me, is the most physically prepared of the three prospects. If you look at him, you will see that he is a well-built rock. He does not have any need to put any added muscle on his frame, even at this point. Now, of course, in the NBA, he's going to get his body defined to a better extent. But as far as how Ja Morant was coming into the league, where if everybody remembers during his rookie season, his arm sleeve would never stay up. He needed a lot of body development. Now, that probably comes from not being a high level prospect his entire high school career, not getting he was trained by his father, and not getting probably the top level weight training while he was in college that would help him get there. But as you see, we're just going into the fourth year of Ja Morant, and he's already developed that body all to the point where he is not going to need too much more physical development in the league. So that is of little concern. Now, where Scoot Henderson far outshines both Derrick Rose and Ja Morant is in shot creation. Off the dribble, jump shot creation. Now, last season in the G League, his first season in G League, his three-point shot was not falling. I think he shot like 21% from three in the G League. But when you watched him play, you saw how effective and efficient he was in the mid-range with his jump shot. And I've told you on this video, when Ja Morant even came into the NBA, he had to work on his footwork just to get his off-the-dribble jump shot NBA ready. He was having trouble as a rookie getting that ready. Scoot Henderson will have none of this trouble. If you saw the games in Las Vegas versus Victor Wembanyama, you saw him already he has pulled that range from the mid-range out to the three-point range. And if he holds that efficiency, it's going to be crazy in the G League. If he's already taken his efficient mid-range game to the three-point line before he even gets to the NBA, the sky is the limit with Scoot Henderson. Now, where he compares more to Ja Morant than Derrick Rose is him and Ja Morant both have the mentality of floor general. Despite their athletic gifts and their ability to score at will like Derrick Rose, they are more wired to be floor generals and get their teammates involved. Now, both of them are smart players, so they will turn up the scoring load whenever they need to and when their team needs to. But they are both efficient or good floor generals, passers, getting their teammates involved. Ja Morant is a more special passer than Scoot Henderson from what I've seen so far. Ja Morant does a lot more things, with the ball, but I didn't see Ja Morant at 18. So this is a big difference. I didn't see Ja Morant at 18. Scoot Henderson probably has the better handle than both Ja Morant and Derrick Rose. He can virtually get anywhere he wants to on the court. Now, when the finishing packages are compared, it's hard to compare. We know Ja Morant is one of the best finishers in NBA history. Coming into the league, it was a little questionable because he played at a small college in a small conference. And, although his finishing numbers were good in college, the guys that he went up against were not NBA caliber. We saw Scoot Henderson go against one of the greatest rim protectors in prospect history and was able to finish at will. Even though he got his shot blocked a couple of times, he was able to finish under duress against Victor Wembanyama. So his finishing package is going to be great. And his finishing package is unlike Derrick Rose and Ja Morant, who like to finish on top of the defense with vicious dunks, power dunks, and things like that. Scoot Henderson has a better, I think what I would say is a more half-court NBA-enabled finishing package where he can get to the rim with his dribble and get under for, non-over-the-rim finishes, layups, floaters, things of that nature. Scoot Henderson has it. Ja Morant has the floater. Derrick Rose has a floater. The thing about this is going to separate these guys, and I think the thing that moves Ja Morant to the head of the class for me is the mentality. And that's something that I can't really speak on with Scoot Henderson, who's only played in the G League. But he did show the killer mentality in Vegas, and his interviews are excellent. So I expect Scoot Henderson to follow closely in the footsteps of both Derrick Rose and Ja Morant, two young, explosive point guards that were in the MVP conversation before their rookie contracts was over. Of course, Ja Morant finished 7th. Derrick Rose actually won an MVP before his rookie contract was over, and they created a whole entire rule in the salary cap called the Rose Rule to compensate players as good as he is. Scoot Henderson, thank Derrick Rose when you see him in the NBA next year, because you're going to get paid for that, and I'm sure Ja Morant has already thanked him for helping him get paid or have the opportunity to get paid this season with an extra $30 million. That is because of how gifted and special Derrick Rose was as a point guard. It is going to be very interesting to track these guys. I think you're going to see the shift from the Ja Morant, Trae Young Twitter feud that's going on, and it's going to it may shift a little bit more to Ja Morant versus Scoot Henderson. It kind of depends because unlike Ja and Trae, Ja and Scoot's draft classes aren't too close, and Ja is going to be a well-established player by the time Scoot Henderson touches down in the NBA. But guys, let me know, who do you prefer as a prospect? I know we're mostly Grizzly fans, and a lot of us are going to prefer Ja Morant, but I get a lot of people who are fans of other teams listening to this. Who do you prefer as a prospect? Now, you got to kind of forget the injuries that Derrick Rose had to end his career or to derail his career, because nobody thought he was going to have an injury history coming into the league. And we have to kind of forget how great Morant has been on the court and as a winner in his NBA career. And it looks like Scoot Henderson might be the best of both worlds between Ja Morant and Derrick Rose. Let me know what you think about each prospect. Who do you think is the best prospect? And do you think Scoot Henderson has a chance to be the number 1 pick? Let me know in the comments section. Like this video, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys tomorrow with another video. Peace.